Should we get started?
All right. So everyone say, so my name is Richard Lemieux. I'm hosting this meetup. And the goal of the meetup, of course, is whatever you want, if you want to talk, and things like that. So just to get the protection to get us together, we get a speaker. You might talk about Angular, hopefully. And then basically, Tyler, you've been working a lot with testing, and you're going to give us some introduction of Angular.
I'm going to give some introduction. I'll say how much experience I have here in a second. So, my name is Tyler Lemke. I work at a insurance company by day. I also work for a startup by night, and I teach as well at another meetup. I just got started in Angular, but I'm really interested in going wide. So if you guys want to know about a lot of different tools, I hope there's some tools here you guys haven't heard of before that's useful to all of us. Be gentle with me if I make mistakes, because I'm just starting out here. So I'm probably going to make some mistakes. And feel free to call me out if I say anything that's technically wrong. I won't feel bad. I'd rather have the right things said. So feel free to connect with me on these sites here. You might have heard of them, LinkedIn and YouTube. They're websites. So this is a plug. I hope this is okay, Richard. This is the startup I work for. So it's a brand new way that kind of simplifies hiring for both hiring managers and for developers. So we're focusing on kind of eliminating resumes and making the process a lot easier and making it so that hiring managers have more money to retain talent rather than spend it on recruiters. So if anyone's a recruiter in here, you probably can hear that, but that's kind of where we're at. So if you sign up with this, my boss will like me. It'll give me a referral link, and it'll let me know. It'll let him know that I'm actually, pushing the good word or whatever you want to say. So you guys can get this PDF right here. It's on my GitHub. I got a nice little bit.ly link for you. So go grab that if you'd like.
And you're going to put it on the...
Yeah, I can put it on the
meetup.
On the meetup as well afterwards. I can post that. Does everyone have that? Who doesn't have it that wants it? Going once. Highest bidder. Sold. You got it now? Okay, cool. So what are we going to talk about tonight? We're going to talk about testing, why tests are awesome. Probably going to be preaching to the choir a lot about that, so we're not going to spend too much time on it. We'll talk a little bit about unit testing, end-to-end tests. We'll talk about alternative tools and frameworks, and maybe one or two best practices as some spice. So that's what we'll go over tonight. So like I said, we're casting a wide net here, and it should be fun. So why automate tests? I did about 10 months of manual testing after my internship, and I hated it. So manual tests suck. And you still have to test your stuff, right? Or do you throw it all over to your QAs after you're done with it? You're like, I think it works, right? So unit tests provide documentation, right? Contract. We check regressions, and our end-to-end test tells us if our apps work. What's some other reasons you guys can think of that we should have automated tests in our software? Freedom?
If you don't have my test, I'm going to change the code. If I change the code, I don't know if I'm going to break. If I have full testing and I want to change something in the framework, then I can go ahead. If I break something, I'm going to go right away. So I hold my code. If I don't have testing, I don't hold my code. I'm just going to do the minimum, fix that little bug.
Unless you're a cowboy.
Huh?
Unless you're a cowboy, and then you just go and rock and roll. Let's change this thing. Yeah, so if you're paranoid, who's paranoid in here? Raise your hand. Yep. That's why everyone who still wants tests is paranoid, right? We got about half the room. So if you're paranoid, that helps as well. Another reason is Who's heard of the Palm study that was back in like 2000? Anyone heard of that before? So Palm did a study, and they saw how long it took to fix bugs after, if the programmer had to wait for a certain period of time. So I'm not going to get this exactly right, but let's say a 1 hour bug, if they had to wait 2 weeks to fix that later, it would turn into a 20 or 24 hour bug if they could fix it today in 1 hour. So basically, you 20-fold the amount of time it takes to fix bugs when you have distance or separation from when that bug was created. Does that make sense? So pretty cool stuff. At least I geek out on stuff like that. Who isn't doing any testing in here right now?
You mean automated testing?
Automated testing, yes. Any testing, you're probably fired, but. So a couple of us. I saw a lot of these concepts I've kind of pulled from other different videos and stuff I've seen. I think it's really important, like testing is a skill. You kind of brought it up earlier, Richard, like learning like Protractor, it's like a skill to get that. It's a skill to get Cypress. It's a skill to do unit tests. I feel like unit tests are really hard to do right. I feel like that one like seems really overwhelming to me. We're going to talk about Cypress, like getting your back end set up if you actually want to do end-to-end tests and things like that. So you might feel overwhelmed. So if you don't know where to start, we're going to get you started a little bit, give you a little bit of a push, and hopefully we can all help each other. So how do you guys unit test in Angular? We use Jasmine, right? Everyone know what Jasmine is? I think I have and we use the Karma test runner, which is like horribly slow. So that's what we're stuck with. But these are, the Jasmine framework is what we use. So if you guys want to go grab this project and do the npm install, it's my Frankentest project. It didn't work as planned. I was trying to go too wide. I didn't get JESS installed, and the Protractor's broken, so we'll do what we can though. So it did live up to its name. Anyone not know how to go through these steps that's like brand new in here? Don't be shy. Okay. So I can break it down more if we need to. Because I've been at the meetups before that you're completely lost and you're just like, I'm ready to book it. Close this lid. Let's get out of here. Does everyone have that? Anyone not have it? I know someone doesn't have it, but you don't want to admit it. You don't have any. You don't have an Angular? Okay. Well, you can just download that and install it. You have npm and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just try it. Let's go try it out. I'm sure your dad will help you out. Why is he sitting on the other side of you? Plausible deniability. All right. So Jasmine, what type of test do we do with Jasmine? Unit test, right? On the DOM. Yeah. It uses BDD, right? That's what it says. This is straight from their website. It's a quote from their website. It says it uses behavior-driven development framework.
Well, it's the other way around. BDD can be done with Jasmine.
Right.
Yeah, so
Right. But usually you have describe and it, functions, blocks, whatever you want to call it, and you're doing behavior-driven development of actually explaining what the user is doing as you go through.
Yeah.
At least that's how I understand it.
Yes.
So you have your describe, up here, and this is kind of how you start a suite of tests, right? So this might be one particular component you're testing. And this is just Jasmine itself, right? We're not talking about doing the Angular yet, but this is just pure Jasmine. So we have a describe, and then we have the name of the suite, and then we have a callback function. It gets a little weird here if you're not used to doing all these callback functions over and over again, but and then inside those describes we have a bunch of its, right? And those are all the individual tests that we run. So we're going to do assertions inside of each one of those it functions. So what does this one do? Right? Does nothing. Typical for examples, right? All right, so what is testbed? Why do we have testbed? So from what I understand, testbed kind of mocks out or like creates your module for you, so you don't have, so you can be completely independent of the rest of the application. Well, it has mocking inside of it, but it creates your, I don't know if mocking is the right word, but it creates your module for you so that you have a module to use instead of using like the actual module. That's what I understand. Anyone can correct me. Yeah, it says it emulates the ng module. So we use testbed a ton when we create unit tests. Questions? All right. So go to source. Yep.
Why do we need Testbed?
Why do you need a testbed?
Yeah.
So you can basically actually test your components. Without the testbed, you wouldn't be able to test your component in isolation, I don't think.
Jasmine doesn't know Angular, so there's some part of Angular you need to fake. But Testbed is basically creating a fake Angular and
Thanks for that.
The fundamental building block of Angular is a module, and Jasmine wants to be the fundamental building block, so it has to fake, it has to create a module, is that right?
That's what I understand from this. Like it emulates the ng module, which is what all your modules extend, right? So when you create a module, I think it extends ng module. And then it lets you put your component inside that module. And all your declarations and everything like that.
So it basically makes it rely on these dependencies.
Yeah, which is what unit testing is, right?
Okay. We'll go with that.
Sounds good. All right. So let's go over to this piece of code. Like I said, we're going to have some hands-on stuff here. So I've got some comments in here. Is anyone, who's using VS Code? Most of the room? Okay. What else is everyone else using? WebStorm? Woo! What's that? IntelliJ, yeah. WebStorm, cool. So there is one plugin you can pick up called Jasmine Code Snippets on VS Code, and that will help you to start getting a framework for making these tests. Because I hate I'm not good at like doing the gymnastics with these tests with my fingers. So you can go to this link at the top. Is this big enough for you guys in the back?
Yeah.
Is that more adequate? No?
I can maybe just like kind of like I know like
We're going to have to move you to the front of the class.
I mean I think that's fine. I think it's more the colors
The colors are awesome.
that
Let's see. How do you switch the color scheme in here?
like more like a contrast. Oh yeah, that's fine.
Does that work? Yeah, I should have done the white. I'm sorry. I just love the dark themes, but it's horrible for presentations. I've learned my lesson. All right, so you can go to this link and it'll kind of give you a little bit of a hint of what we're going to do. But how do we create a describe block, right? So if you remember earlier, it starts with describe, but if you have this plugin, I'm going to just create one there with the Jasmine. So it's kind of nice. So
So can we be writing this in any of these specs?
what's that?
We don't have your first spec. So you want us to create that module or that component?
So you want to create which spec?
We don't have that file that you're.
Yeah, the file's not in your.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead and create it. I thought I pushed it up. I told you something would go wrong. You guys are so kind. Don't burn me at the stake. All right. Very valid question. Okay, so what we want to test here is maybe just the app component. We're going to make a really simple test. I'm probably going to mess it up horribly, but I have a completed one that actually works, so we'll see how this goes. So we have our describe block, right? So that's the first thing that we need. And you can't do, one thing I learned as I was playing around with this, you can't do assertions inside your describe or it just messes everything up. So make sure you actually do them inside the it functions. So inside of our describe, it says we need to create a fixture variable, a variable fixture of component fixture with the type app component. So what does that mean? So if I go to let fixture equals, see how I have component fixture up here? And component fixture is kind of another way to like mock out your component or whatever. I don't know the proper terminology for it, but. And then we want the type to be app component, right? Which we brought in up here. Cool. What did I do wrong? Oh, I'm missing new. I told you I messed something up. What's that?
It needs arguments.
The arguments in there. I think you're supposed to do it like this. I don't think you're supposed to do it. Is that right?
Get it out of the angle brackets.
All right, let's see what I'm doing horribly wrong here. So it's supposed to be like this.
Oh.
It's not an assignment, it's a declaration.
Oh, it's a declaration, right? See? The easy stuff. So we want to create a before each block. Does anyone know what the before each block does in Jasmine? So for every it that you create, it's going to run this before each. It's similar to other unit testing frameworks. So I can create a before each function here. And inside of here, we want to create a test bed with declarations and schema section. So did anyone visit this handy dandy site? We go down here. So we have a testbed.create configure testing module and then a declarations section there. All right, so let's try that out. I'm just gonna go steal that. But it's not quite what I want, right? So I have got my fixture before each. So I have a declarations array, but I also need a schemas array, right? And I don't want login component. What type of component are we testing? App component. So we're kind of injecting this stuff into our module, and preparing it. So we got a schema section. Create a component instance that's assigned the reference to the fixture created earlier. All right, the problem is we're missing a part here. So we need this, what's called custom element schema. And that helps us get rid of some errors that will come up if we don't put it in there. I don't know all the ins and outs of it. Does anyone else?
Okay, can you run the test suite so we can see it there?
This one?
Yeah, when you can run that, like just so nothing.
Not yet. We have to do an edit.
But I agree, I'd like to see it without schemas, just to see the error.
Uh, See, this is why I don't create my own blocks, because I'm like, there we go. It should behave. It always should, but it never does. All right, so how do we run our tests? So we could run ng test. My terminal is all squashed down, so. So what problem did we just experience? I thought I had that fixed. I think inside of your, it's not your Angular. Well, it runs the whole suite every time anyway, unless, I think you can you put F in front of it to run the, I think you put F in front of your it statements to run a specific one, but it just exited out on us. So, where's my file? See, I have it on, that's the problem, I didn't do an NPM test. Let's try it again. See if it works this time. So when you put the watch flag on there, Karma will stay up the whole time, and it will watch for changes to your spec files, right? So your spec files is where all your tests live, all your unit tests live. So we can see that it's not failing at all. And I think if I take that out, it still won't fail. So I think we have to keep going forward to see the actual failure. Questions so far? I know I'm jumping around a lot and skipped a lot of stuff. Okay.
So you already put the watch flag? My Chrome browser keeps opening and closing.
So all you have to do is put npm test instead of ng test, and it has I have the watch flag built in there. Unless I didn't make the changes.
ng test space dash watch works too.
Yeah, I might not have put those changes in there. So yeah.
ng space test space dash watch works too.
Perfect. Thanks. So we need to create a component instance, and it's signed its reference to the fixture we created earlier. And we did the it block, so that's still inside of the before each. So how do we create a component instance? So let's go back to our site here. We have fixture equals testbed dot create component. Let me make that bigger. Login component, right? So let's go ahead and steal that piece of code. So we're assigning fixture to this reference, right? To the create component reference. But again, we don't have the right component name, so we need to change that to app. Cool. So now, before each time, it's going to give us a brand new kind of mocked out module and component each and every time, brand new one. Why is that important for our unit tests? So our state doesn't leak, right?
We're gonna do a big test them with the individual cases and then
Right. Exactly, because that's just going to cause you more headache than good. All right, so what's the next part we need to do? We created the it. So we can delete that one. So we need to set the title to hello test on the fixture. So if I go to fixture, maybe we can look through the, see if we see anything here. Component instance, I think, is what we want. So fixture.component instance. So we're actually modifying this component instance, and we want to change the title. So dot title. You gotta love autocomplete. It's beautiful. What do we want to make that title? Well, we might make it hello world, right? Classic. Classic. Okay. So there's a problem with this, though. And what is that problem? Well, this actually didn't change anything inside of our component because we have to detect changes. So we actually have to fire a flag off for the component to actually change. And from what I understand, this is kind of just a weakness of how the testbed works. You'd kind of expect it just to change for you, but it doesn't. So if we go back to our example, let's see. It's not going to have it there, so I'll go back to our completed example. So, sorry. Fixture.detect changes. Trigger a change detection cycle for the component. All right, so we talked about the life cycle of a component, right? There's change detection that occurs. It actually won't do any change detection, which means nothing happens. So, it'd be sweet if that happened automatically, but alas. We might talk about some interesting ways to solve this in a little bit, though, too. Okay, so what do we have to do after that? We have to write an expectation against the title, right? So how do we do the expectation? I can't even think right now. Does anyone know how to start it? Expect, right? Thank you. So we're going to expect. And then what do we put inside the expect? Okay. So what do we need inside of here? Let's go back. So this is where it gets really, really funky, right? So there's the fixture, native element. You can use native and debug element depending on what APIs you need. But this is how you can go and actually select. I'm going to take this whole statement here and break it down. Like I said, I'm new to this too, so I forgot like everything to put inside there. So we have the fixture, right? That's what we're playing. That's our component instance, or that's our actual like representation of the DOM or whatever. Dot native element dot query selector. So that kind of works just like any other like jQuery, right? We're just putting in the H1 here. And then we have to go and grab the text content. Which I don't know, is that a standard?
Yeah.
I don't know if it has inner HTML. I think it does. Oh yeah, inner text. I think it does, but just it doesn't, from what I was reading. So we'll get to that in a second. And then we do a to contain. We could have it to be, Why would you want to lean towards a to contain instead of having it say to be?
Test the string instead of something else.
Well, what if you have an extra space in there somewhere, right? So if you have an extra space inside of your, for whatever reason, inside of your template, your HTML template, for lack of a better term, then this basically gets past that, so you don't have to get rid of it if you wanted it there.
So to contain is like just testing that
It
it
ex-
exists in a form like the string.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like hey, go get this substring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Questions? I know we went through that quick. I hear crickets.
So it looks like this is my first introduction to like Angular, pretty much all of it. So you declare like what you're expecting, or you're like it was like we mocked that out. We got like we're locking our module, and then we like emulate like what we were gonna have happen. Again, I think with the other modules we're gonna have this property title, and then we're just accessing like a mock DOM, and then testing and sorting.
Yeah, so you're having that emulated module, and then inside that you're putting an instance of your component, and then on that your component you can go do whatever you want with it, right? So you can go, hey, stick this text right inside of the title for me. So it's really nice because you have access to just play around with all your DOM basically.
I may have zoned out, but why do we set the title in here instead of it reading the HTML?
So
The 2 lines above.
this one.
Yeah, shouldn't that like read from the component? Or
So if you read it from the component, then you're not unit testing, right? I'm injecting this title because that title, if we go and look at let's go look at the component really quick. This is a great question. So,
will always have.
what's that?
I'm confused because that test we wrote would always have.
Unless the title didn't exist.
Unless you didn't put the title inside the test itself.
Right, and this is a contrived test, but you want to go and inject your data that you're going to use. Otherwise, you're doing integration testing.
So let's say your standards.
So normally it would come from an API. But
No, let's say your standards dictate that all titles will be in H1s. So you write your test to do that. When somebody comes along and makes a modification and sticks the title in an H2, the test will fail, and rightly so.
It's great. That's a great example.
It doesn't that much, but typically you might also have some processing, so what you might see might be something different with test, with the hello Joe, and so you might want to test the fact that you get the name, and you get the name concatenated properly, so that's a simple one, but you can build on that, because typically when you put it there, you're gonna put multiple components and see the page that built up result.
Basically, we're setting a property on the component and then making sure that it appears right in the HTML.
Correct. Yeah. Because we don't want to have to rely. We're going to talk about end-to-end tests soon, where we can go and actually test that everything works. And from what I know, our integration or end-to-end tests are more important than our unit tests. We don't know that our software works, right? If all we have is unit tests, we don't know that it actually integrates. It's not. We don't know it works. So we want both, obviously.
Where this gets really interesting is where you start using it on form groups, and where you have custom validators in there. And with those custom validators, you can actually use this to validate the validators. So it's not just DOM specific, it's all encompassing.
Yeah. So we're just going over the component right now. So there's a bunch of different things inside Angular. So you have pipes, you have services, you have can you test modules as well? You don't really test the modules for themselves, right? Right. What else do you have? So you have your pipes, your services, your components, and you can have classes, right? So you can test. What's that? Validators. So we just went into the component section itself. So you want to learn more about doing these other tests, I'd recommend going to angular.io/guide/testing, I also have some other resources. I geek out on resources, so I have a million resources inside this PDF. But like I said, I'm going wide, especially given my lack of expertise with all this different stuff. The testing starts getting really complex really quick, at least for me. So, any other questions? Cool. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about JESS. I heard someone bring up JESS earlier, right? So JESS is supposedly faster, more stable, and it does snapshot testing. So snapshot testing is basically you take a snapshot of how your DOM is actually rendered, and then I guess you do some hashing against it or something, and then you compare that hash later. I don't know exactly how. Is that roughly how it works?
You're able to just do test against the snapshot, in the expectation, and it saves that they create that snapshot in file 40 at the time you run the test, and then basically whatever you're injecting into it, I think
Right.
and also will automatically update it. So I have never found it super useful, so I haven't used it a lot, but
It's your entire snapshot, correct? Of the entire HTML,
Yeah.
rendered HTML. Okay.
Does it even find if a pixel is missing somewhere?
It's not a visual snapshot.
It's just
Check the DOM, check the DOM.
it'll take whatever the component. I'm coming from React, so it'll take the React component and then render it. I think it's against the string, and then they test against the snapshot, and then if it breaks, it'll tell you update it.
HTML to HTML.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just doing text comparison.
Not the DOM, but the HTML.
HTML.
Cool. I didn't get it working.
But how is that useful? Because typically, if you change the thing, expect the HTML to change.
You're right.
Yeah. It's not very useful.
What's useful about it is rather than doing a bunch of 1,000 tests on a page, you do one big snapshot and then making sure that nothing changes. More for regression than anything.
Yeah.
So you pass all your data, you inject all your data, and then it's like, oh, it all looks right.
You pass all your data and you go, this looks good, and you save the snapshot, and then later on, if somebody makes changes which blow up your page, it'll compare, this is what it was when you liked it, and this is what it is now. And if they're different, then it raises the red flag.
This is what UX. It's just to know if something changed, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not as good or bad as is it different.
Cool. So end-to-end test in Angular. We use Protractor, built on WebDriver JS. I was watching, did anyone go to NGConf by chance in Utah? It's like last month. So I was watching a video on it, and they brought up a really good point. Does anyone know how old Selenium is?
15 years.
2004.
I guess, actually.
So we're using 15-year-old technology to test modern day technology. That sounded better in my head when I was going to say it, but it's old, right? So if you want to go and check out Protractor, just go to this tutorial. I'm not going to get into it, and here's why. I'm not bashing Protractor completely, but I just got taught by a Google developer expert. He said, basically, I asked him, he's like, is Cypress versus Protractor? He said, Cypress is better in every way. I was like, okay, that's what I expected, having used Cypress like a year ago. He said he spent 2 days trying to create some tests in Protractor. They weren't working out at all. And then in 2 hours, he converted them all, and they're all just working, right? And it was I'm guessing it was that problem with the explicit waits, right? That's the biggest problem I've seen in Selenium or heard about Selenium is the wait times are just a nightmare. So let's do another story. So Jessie Sanders, one of the people that was presenting with John Papa at this NGConf, he said that people will build up entire libraries of protractor tests and then abandon them because they become unwieldy. And he was talking about moving over to Cypress. So the last one is awesome. So the guy that helped create Angular Universal, he said at a high level, the primary reason for the switch from Protractor to Cypress was because in the course of 2 months, their developers were more productive with testing than in 2 years. So, you know I don't have all the experience, but I like to rely on other people's experience.
The problem with Protractor is Protractor is based on Selenium.
Right.
The problem with Selenium is that you got your test, and then your test, you run your test in your NPM, in your little NPM product. And that talks to the web driver, Selenium, who talks to the web page. So you got all these things talking to each other, and then it comes back. So you change something, and now there's whole a bunch of possible race conditions that can happen. So typically, so you go and the web driver change the page. So you talk to the web driver talks to the browser, and this links to the browser. So you get all sort of situation where typically it's what happens. We write our test or Protractor, and then suddenly the test passes everything, and suddenly it doesn't work. The same test that used to work because you change something slightly different environment, takes a little bit longer, and now when you go and you read something, you don't get the same value you had previously. So that's a big problem, and that's the reason why Cypress runs within the browser. You don't have this little guy in the middle, and that's why it eliminates all those race conditions. Because typically what happens is that the driver thinks that the DOM is a specific way, but the DOM has a lot of Angular stuff running in there. So whatever the driver thinks the DOM is may have changed because the whole series of digest, well, now it's only one digest, but still, it takes time. So by the time the digest cycle, actually the zone will have finished working, something may have changed, but the driver already read what the page was. So now the driver is confused about what the page is. And that's why the fact that you have a lot of code running into your browser, and then you have a second brain that tries to figure what it is, and so you have two brains trying to manage the same. One trying to figure what the page is, and one is managing the pages. That's what the problem is, and that's why we have all the problem with Protractor.
It's basically black box. You got a black box with Protractor, and you have right inside the debugger. Cypress can just inject stuff immediately, and we'll go over a little bit of that and just see how it's going. So I want to talk about a warning though here. So if you need multi-browser support, you're not going to get that with Cypress, right? So that's one consideration. There's probably other considerations as well, but I'd say that's the biggest downfall that I know of. Does anyone know of other ones that you have? What does Protractor have a one-up on?
But Protractor is Selenium, and it has a whole ecosystem. You have a solid tool that goes in it. It works very well for GSP pages. It works very well for what it was written for. But for SPA, Selenium doesn't work very well for SPA, and that's what the problem is. But it has a bunch of tools that you look so UI. You can structure your test suite, and there's a whole series of tools.
Right, and do clustering and stuff like that.
So the Protractor worked really well for Apple maybe 15 years ago.
So hopefully it doesn't work with Angular. It works with GSP.
Yeah.
So it's just older.
So the Protractor is the attempt to make Selenium work with Angular. That they try to patch it.
No one wanted to rewrite. No one wanted to reinvent the wheel. Yeah.
What does that mean, multi-browser support? You're losing multi-browser support.
So Cypress only supports Electron or Chromium. So they're going to support Firefox at some point. The last I heard, they only support Chromium. So that's a consideration, right?
Yeah. Selenium will support all the browser possibilities.
Yeah. And I don't know if there might be extra mobile stuff you can do with Protractor. I'm just guessing. But yeah, that's some stuff to consider. So let's go check out Cypress. So this is something I have a little more experience with. So we need to start up, the first thing we need to do is we need to start our application, and then we have to go and start up Cypress, right? It's not as cool as Protractor in that, like, I think the end-to-end test will do it for you automatically, but when you're on the end-to-end with Protractor. So let's go open this up, or does it? I don't even know. Well, let's open it up and get it running. So in our first one, we're gonna do npm. I'm gonna kill Karma. So if you do Control C, you got Karma up and running. You can kill it that way. So let's do npm start. And then open up another terminal. And I think it's the command is npx cypress open. So npx cypress open. Oh, we got an error.
I got the same thing, yeah, the filing is, that filing has to be .spec.ts.
Which one?
The one that needs to go for right now.
Oh, this one I messed up.
I got the same error.
All right, I'm gonna nuke that file. Let's try it again. So we got Cypress open right here. So this fires up a new, basically a new Chromium browser, and we do got it started. Thanks for the help on that. So you can see this is a Chrome window. You can see which version of Chrome running. We can do Electron as well. So it runs in headless mode in Electron when you run it on CI. So you can go and run your tests in CI. And last August, they finally got basically multi-threaded support, if you want to say, for lack of better terms, where you can spin up multiple ones of these. But you have to do that with mini machines or machines that have like 56 plus cores or something, from what I was reading. So that being said, the tests are supposed to be faster than Selenium anyway. So maybe you won't have that problem. All right, so we want to open Cypress integration test spec JS. So we go to the top here where it has Cypress integration. Do you guys have this, or is it missing?
I don't have it. Maybe you get, yeah, you see it? Maybe you could just push.
Yeah, let me see if I do push. Is it in the GitHub?
You see it? You can push that little hole and now you see it.
You got it? Yeah, that's exactly it. Someone push to my branch for me. Let me look at the GitHub really quick.
I'm on master.
I can see it in here. Who's bombastic?
So there's only one branch, 2 commits, and the Cypress is right in there. It's on there. So I don't know if the link is wrong.
Oh, there it is. Okay, I got it. I was looking at the source.
Okay, cool. We're on the same page now. So let's look at what's going on here with Cypress. So we're not going to type it all out. So you can see it's really similar to how Jasmine works, right? I think it's using the Chai and it's using Chai and Mocha. I forget which one's the assertion library. So the expectations are a little bit different here, but it works very similarly. If you see Psi, that's basically kind of like jQuery, right? It's the global object that you can you can run all the APIs off of. Okay? Questions so far? We're good. Okay. So before each, we have to actually go and visit the web page. Hence why we did the npm run, so it's actually working. Then we have some tests here that I created, which are not particularly useful, but they're easy to read, right? So we're just checking for the title, and it says what it says, right? So let's go look at how it runs. So how do we run this inside of Cypress? Well, we go just over to our testspec.js and click on that. Just that one. If I can click properly. Then what happens? My site's still running. It goes and runs both of the tests. Now this is usually really cool when you have like 1 million of them in there because you see them all running and stuff. But let's go back and see some of the cool stuff that we can see with this one. Is that good? On size? Make that a little bigger. Cool. All right. XHR got aborted. So on the side here, you see these pins. These are actually snapshots of each step of our test. You don't get that with Protractor. Remember, black box. So we can actually go on the side here and pin one of these. So how about when I typed Bomba, I want to go see that. I go down here on the hide highlights, and I can see I should be able to see Bomba, but I don't. I don't know why. Does anyone know why? What am I doing wrong here? Yeah, you're right. So you got to be smart enough to click the other button. Make you guys feel smart tonight. It's my job. All right, so yeah, you have the before and after on each one. This is really, really cool. So this gets you up, and I think this is part of why you have so much speed with Cypress. I know you guys were talking over here. What experience have you had with Cypress so far, using it on your projects?
We were, back in the day, I guess we were using mostly like Protractor, and it was kind of a pain to get it going, and then they brought in a kind of third-party consultant that came in and set Cypress IO up, and then it just seemed kind of easier to pick up.
And Scott, again, we run load tests, so when we're running the load tests on server as part of our build, it might fail because again, the UIs are pitching up fast enough.
Because what?
So what happened to us, so if we're running load tests, sometimes it will time out. So it's perfect for, yes, smaller amount of tests.
Thinking about Cypress? Oh, so you still have this problem where
Yes.
But on the very server, like
Yeah,
on the local memory run, it's
Oh, because you don't have enough processing power, so the timings go off. Okay.
And also we have the issue when at some point our Chrome was updated and then Cypress was not working. So we were waiting for Cypress got updated and then it was working fine. So it's all kind of unexpected things that happen to us.
Right. So you could parallel those out and do some clustering or whatever to get rid of those issues, but that costs money and time, right? So
I don't use much Cypress, but what I heard people say is that it's not only for end-to-end testing, so you can also debug your code.
Yes.
Debug your code.
Well, we're also working on the power calls. So what we're doing, like right now, you got the DI call and it's saying XHR, right? So you can look it up and then you can just knock it up and see the results. And then you see exactly the results that you expect to see, and then you can add the variations. So yes, it's very powerful and it's really easy.
So you use it as you want.
And we provided something else. So we're using a Cucumber on our end, and the Cucumber is basically allowing us to write our test cases. So we write it down, given a moving page, when I'm typing my user, then again, button, everything happened. So we're taking this actual descriptions, and then so the way Cypress and the Cucumber work, and it's just put up together. So we can work in parallel, so we can create test cases, and then we can create the code. So it's way faster. And it's really easy to go back and just read through all the test cases, not just, look through the code, just read it through.
So we could create the test cases, high-level stuff, and maybe the middle empty?
It's not empty, it's like you basically tap, okay, so you write it down, some kind of expression, given them a login page, and then you hook up to code it's saying a CY visit, and then do like local password there.
Okay.
So it's amazing, it's very powerful.
So you can just test it ahead of time and then you develop it. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like the whole Gherkin language. We've as a team, we developed the test cases and then put those in like a user story. And then whenever we got done with the story, we did the developer or the QA to pick up the story and we basically use Cypress on those.
Yeah.
This is like true unique.
Yeah.
The thing about Protractor is it seems like you have to be more like, it's harder if you're QA, if you're just trying to learn it, but with Cypress or QA, and I've done a lot of automation, we're able to pick it up really quickly.
I try to push QA on the tester for years.
And we recently hired a guy about a month ago who had no Cypress experience, but had worked with Selenium and picked it up right away. It's unbelievable how much progress he's done on that as far as test coverage on his application. So yeah, it's pretty powerful.
That's awesome. Yeah, have you guys used a page object model before with Protractor? So you can do that with Cypress. It's considered an anti-pattern. It's considered an anti-pattern with Cypress.
With Cypress?
Yes. But part of the problem, I have some articles in here where you can go and look at how to do the page object model with Cypress if you'd like to. But they suggest to do a different method. The problem is I don't think Cypress has the hooks for Angular to actually kick things off. So it's called let me see if I can find it here. Start using app actions. So you actually go kick off part of your JavaScript. So you go run like particular functions themselves instead of going and clicking on the elements. So it's a lot faster. But I'd check out those articles if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about should I use page object model or.
So you repeat that? You click the action.
So let me go into it because I probably won't explain it very well. So you can do page objects. Like it shows up there.
I've always been doing page object.
So you've been doing that? Have you had any problems with it?
Cypress.
Oh, yeah. Because I thought you couldn't do it. And I was surprised when someone said they had this article in here that said that you could.
Oh, yeah, sure you can, but they say it's an anti-pattern, so they think they have a better solution.
Well, that's like executing. Let me see if I can find it. This article is super long.
Oh, I get it. That's all.
Yeah. But go check it out if you want to know the difference between those two. I skimmed this one, so sorry to have a better answer on that right off the top of my head.
Yeah, anybody knows what the page object and pattern is? So basically when you write the test, you write a page object that represents your component or your page or merge component. And that page object has typically all the selector to access specific parts. So get total, get summary, get fees, so how to get something, you need to go to the HTML and use a selector which has CSS in there. So all your CSS is in your page object, how to access everything, or how to change something on a page tree. And then you present an interface, which is like business interface. So the idea is that I can write the page test, and then I can send that to the tester. And the tester who doesn't know much about the code itself can just write, okay, I see this is a function. I mean, I said this, and you said this, and read that, read this, read that. With business language, like read, summary, get this, get that, without knowing how it's going to happen. The page object, I'll make you know how to read and write and read from the page. That's a separation.
So one other thing I forgot to mention was these sci.gets where you actually go and get the selector for different objects. You can go right up here and get the selector, and you can pick what you want to get. So that's pretty cool. But let's go back to the deck really quick. So I want to talk about some best practices that Cypress recommends. And this is more when you're building new code. So do you guys notice anything about these selectors we use? So for H1 and the class selector we used, why might this be an anti-pattern? What's that? So we have H1. That's pretty generic, right? How many H1s are you going to have on your entire page? You don't know how many components you're going to have with H1. So, but given we could put another class on there or an ID, right? What about search result, the class?
All they want to change the class of this object is test with the title.
Exactly. So we're coupling directly to it. So I actually didn't put the right one for this first one, but you can see here you can use data test and then put in a custom data attributes on your HTML, and now you've completely decoupled your test from your implementation of your classes and everything else. I don't know how useful this is in real world, but I could see it being useful in certain cases.
I can see that. If you do that, then you don't need as much of a object. I can see.
So the one thing when I've seen examples of this, and I think I put a link to it, is they say, for example, they'll just throw in password as a data test. I'm like, what if you have more than one password on your screen? Not as likely, but it could happen. So one thing I'm propositioning is that you put some type of prefix that goes to that actual component. So you prefix it, then put the name. So the prefix could be the actual name of the component. So it is like a company dashboard dash whatever that element is. So if you had a company dashboard component, that's what I would suggest doing, so you don't get naming collisions. Because if you end up doing this and then you have two different components that come on the same screen for whatever reason, if you're doing end-to-end tests, then you can have that problem with not knowing which one to select. But I don't have real world experience with it yet, so try it out.
You introduce your own tag there just for the purpose of testing, so you manage to make it unique.
Right. So and Cypress suggests using data-sci, but you can put data-anything according to the HTML spec and inject it in there, and it works. And I think I have an article linked if you want to read more about that as well. All right, remember we were talking about remember how we were testing our component earlier? This is where it gets a little bit more complicated, right? So we have our fixture, then we have instance, and we put our debug element, and then we have our native element, and we do all these different things. It's not a ton more complicated, but it's a little more noisy. How many people like how noisy this is? So what if we could turn this into this? Now, what's the difference here?
Where's the picture?
What's that?
You add the picture into the create test component factory?
Yeah, so your factory is doing a lot of things. So your factory is actually, I believe your factory is doing the detect changes, See, detect changes disappeared for us. That's awesome.
The whole picture is gone.
So this is like half the amount of code. So how do we do that? Well, I ran across Spectator. So Spectator is a framework built on top of Jasmine that has custom selectors that make it easier to actually go and select things. Cleaner API, less boilerplate. So I was trying to weigh the pros and cons about using this. I'm like, well, if it ever did break, you could always just go back to your normal API and keep using that going forward. So this is backed by Datorama, so it's backed by a company. Same one that uses that created Akita State Management. If anyone's heard of that. So there is some backing behind it. But I'd suggest that you go check it out. It's got schematics, so you can go and spin up your specs automatically. When you go into the CLI, it will spin up your spec with Spectator. So, hope.
Can we back to the code? Look at it again?
Yeah.
So you use a spectator both to set and to query.
Yeah, and look how much easier the expectations are with the querying. Look what we had to do over here with our querying.
By CSS and stuff. And the other one is query button.
So it's not a ton shorter, but it's a little more intuitive, a little cleaner, objectively.
How do you know button is unique? The button is basically the element type. Is this the DOM element type? What is button?
Button's your selector, so yeah, that's not probably not the best selector to use, but yeah. Examples.
We still use selector. We still use selector.
Yeah, but it's kind of making it's just making the API cleaner.
Yeah.
So what are you selecting?
Right there?
Sure.
Looks like you're selecting the button, so that's the same thing you selected by CSS over here. So select by CSS, which is on the debug, that's part of the debug element API, I believe. I don't know if that's part of the native element.
So when you do a query on the other one, it's always by CSS?
Well, it's just a CSS selector, so it's just like jQuery. Pretty sure you can put any selector in there.
So this looks more like like how you think about your code. If you're like,
Yeah. I'd prefer to do this.
Because anyway, Protractor offer a whole list of things, but I always use my CSS all the time. Anyway, so that they figured out why bother with all the rest and just provide, assume it's by CSS, which is exactly what I do. It's fine. Because
you could just throw, like what other selectors could you use?
well, if you go use a Protractor, or if you use Selenium, you can say query by name, query by ID, query by.
But you can throw those. You can throw that in a CSS selector anyway.
Exactly. Once you know CSS, you
Right.
use
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
good point. Cool. So here's another tool. Who does TDD in here? Anyone?
I've done it in the past.
All right. So let's see if I can get it working really quick. Has anyone heard of Wallaby JS?
Is this the thing that runs your code like
This thing runs your code as you're typing it. So when you're doing your unit tests, so where's my, I think I killed my spec. Call it Wallaby JS.
It's a change detector. It's a change detector.
I think, yeah, it's like outputs your code in the editor. I mean, I think I've tried it and it's like too much noise.
You know what? It's being finicky. Let me go to.
So many tools. I don't know.
Yeah, so I hope you guys learned some tools today. Like I said, I wanted to go wide. And so let's see Wallaby in action right here. Oh, it says Wallaby in action. I knew what it was going to say. Awesome. Look, we got cool music. So you guys see what's happening on the side? This thing's a little bit finicky, to be honest. I have a video of Pro using it on on Pluralsight. So there's in the resources section again. You guys gotta get this PDF, okay? Put all the resources in there. But you can see where we're making the test pass, and it just goes and tests each line as you're writing it. But like I said, it's a little bit finicky, but there's nothing out. This thing costs 120 bucks. If you use my link, you actually help me buy a license of it. If you don't want to, that's fine. But I look for free tools. There's nothing out here like that, like this on the market. WebStorm, I know, will run stuff for you in line, but it won't run one line at a time, from what I understand. Anyone want to confirm that? Yeah, there's nothing like this out there on the market. So if there was, I would tell you about it, because I was looking. So, and if you guys find out, you leave a message up on.
Is there a trial for this?
Yeah, so they have a trial. It's actually installed into this project, but I'm having a little bit of a hard time getting it running. Let me see if it's yeah, it's enabled on here, but like I said, it's been a little bit finicky for me, so go try it out. See if it's useful for you if you've been doing unit TDD. And here's a bunch more resources. So we got JESS resources, Cypress, Wallaby, Spectator. The one last thing I want to mention is NX by NWRL. Who's used Angular console before? The GUI interface? They make this. This is basically for, you can make mono repos where you can share components across multiple different applications with this. But I don't know if you have to do it if you use this, but if you do use NX, it comes with Cypress and JESS out of the box, which is probably a lot easier than trying to set it up yourself. So,
Yeah, Downwall is a framework on top of Angular CLI. So we use Angular CLI. So these people are very good. It's a bunch of super good developers that got together and they learn Angular CLI, but they make it better. So they have a layer on top of it that provides a bunch of features, including Cypress and other tools.
all right, so I'll leave that up so you guys can get a hold of this. I'll be trying to post this. I don't know if we got good audio, but I'll try to post this on my YouTube channel if that's of any use to anyone. And does anyone else have any other questions or comments?
I was going to comment on a Wallaby thing. Have you tried Visual Studio Live and tested? Does it work on TypeScript maybe?
It does the same thing?
Well, yeah, it does the same thing for C#. I tried on C#, but I was wondering if they ever tried for TypeScript.
What do you mean, the Wallaby?
Yeah, so the Wallaby, so Visual Studio, not Visual Studio Code, but Visual Studio, like full on, has this live unit testing for C#. It does pretty much like that.
Right.
It will check the subject on the test, whether that pass or not.
Yeah, I don't think it does it for JavaScript. I'd be surprised because I think people would say just go use it. Yeah, but it's something to try out. Thanks for mentioning that. Anybody else?
I was wondering on Cypress, like how good is it in the CI/CD pipeline? Like does it run like so with Protractor you can run it like headless or whatever? I'm just familiar with that, but does it do the same?
Yeah, it's all headless, and you can do, like I said before, you can do like multi-threaded or whatever using multiple machines to run them all. I haven't used it yet. I'm anxious to use it. You literally just have, it's a one-liner to go and use it. So,
Just as it uses like web workers to do multi-threaded too, is it, or multi-threaded test?
I don't know how it works with multi-threaded. I think it does have to spin up multiple instances, and it's costly according to what they said. But it wasn't available before, so it is now.
Well, why would you want to spawn those instances to run the same test, to run different tests?
Yeah, just to reduce the time, so it doesn't create, make your build cycle like huge.
Oh, so
Yeah.
So you run just a subset on each,
Yeah.
the result at the end?
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking that's how just speeds up is it spawns itself into like thread code or whatever, like workers, web workers, and then runs the test in parallel as well as like sequentially. I was wondering if Cypress kind of looks the same, so it can kind of reduce the amount of time that you're doing.
Yeah, it uses some way to do where you can run more tests at once in parallel. Yeah. You got any questions, sir?
Yeah, I mean, this is more like a philosophical question, but it's like testing on the front end, like what's the most, like, anybody can answer this too, but what's the most useful thing to test? Because I've seen like a lot of like fluff tests that pass, but there's tons of bugs in applications. I like, testing APIs is pretty straightforward. Testing on the view is like, I'm still trying to wrap my head around like, what's the most useful thing so that like I feel confident in my code. I'm not just like, oh yeah, there's this H1 that outputs this string, but really I should be testing the data behind it, coming from my web state management library.
Form validators. For example, one company I was at, E&O insurance, E&O policy numbers have a very not set format, but they have a set of characters that needs to be excluded. I tried actually putting a regular expression filter in there. It wasn't enough. I could break it, like, it's like, I'd pick something happens and it would break. What I finally did was wrote a special validator for it. I wrote test to test the validator. And once it was done, I could run it anytime I wanted. So I tested with all kinds of stuff, and then I just, anytime somebody changed that code, run that test. The other one was in, anytime you do any kind of calculations, anything where the user can put something in that will throw your front end into like a loop or whatever.
So testing.
But so just services or computation, so I hear the problem. The problem is that all the time you write test to test a component, but all you end up is just setting something and look at what you just said.
So don't test the happy part all the time. Test the unhappy part. Test the edge conditions. Because that's usually where things are going to like crazy big time.
Yeah, I feel like what's happening from that is like we're just finding components and then testing them so they pass. And then we can build our, like, and which is totally useless and a waste of time.
And
It's like, let's get our coverage up. So there's
I think-
easy tests that don't really test everything.
Yeah, they had something over here, and I think that comes down to like using BDD as well. So if you're actually using BDD, then you're going to be testing for more cases as well.
We are testing, so we are using this Cypress and Testbed together. So basically, all the functions and all the logic in the back end, we are testing using JESS. And in the front end, we are using Cypress. And the way we are testing it, we're mocking up our calls. So you're saying, okay, this is jump of data that we're bringing back. Now this is how my UI is supposed to react to this jump of data. So you validate it, you see exactly what it's supposed to say based on data that you got back. And then you can basically mock the notation of the user, right? So you can say, okay, now when I got this thing and I'm putting the button, I'm going to have something will be shown high or whatever. So you can just validate it.
Mine's like, the more you put, like, logic should be more than the services and things like that. So like, those are historically like really easy to test. But like, the more you push it forward to the component, like components are hard, directives are horribly hard. So like, getting all that logic inside of the services, you'll write the test almost exactly like you're writing that API test, and it becomes easy. Because you can inject it and all that stuff, and like, it's a whole lot easier. But like, for the component, that should only be like, putting it to it should be the most minimal amount of code that you have in your code. And you don't really have a whole lot to test. So you're basically testing if the component comes up, and then, I inject something into, or like I do a variable or whatever, if it's showing, which is pretty much like the test that they had, like we're just verifying that it's functioning, but like all of your logic should be really from like services and stuff like that, and just pass that's a variable.
I agree with you, but then why do we bother write component tests at all? Why bother?
Well,
Methods.
yeah, I can tell you what we're
We
using.
just
So
tested.
for our components,
You tested because you use Cypress. With functional testing, yes, it makes sense, but.
We testing our UI, actually UI with Cypress. But our components, we are.
we're calling services.
Yeah.
So we're testing the service got called, we're testing that with the expected data is returned, we're mocking that data. We're testing to make sure the right input is actually getting call the service. We're basically doing like a spy on the service in the component, and that's the main stuff that we're testing in the component.
So you just
And then, like
really-
you said, when you click a button, are these certain things happening? Is it routing to a certain page, stuff like that? But we're never really looking at, is a tag on a template, populated. We don't go to that level, but I think we don't go to that level because we're using Cypress to do so much of that front end stuff. So I guess if somebody's not doing a lot of the end-to-end or integration testing, then it may make more sense to test with the template, but we just don't do that. That can become a pain.
The component want to be minimum as possible. So you click something with a route, so you put the route there, you click that, the route is called, so.
Yeah, make sure it gets called, and then,
Right, but our components also kind of complicated with like a lot of project. If you need to calculate something, so you need to make sure that the method is actually right. So it's easier what you're doing on the DI side, right? On that.
I mean, I'm using React, and since it's not very opinionated, like it's hard, like our components are like a mixture of like everything that you could like separate into like a service and like just in the view, and that makes it harder to test. And then we've gotten this culture where it's like, yeah, let's like write unit tests, but we have a ton of bugs. And like we're not focusing on our Redux or anything like that. And so like testing data is like the most important thing I've seen as far as like consistent results of like bug-free code and testing with the actual view. It's like feels like a waste of time, but that's because we're not.
and it can get even more complicated when you have like, so we have Redux, we use Redux heavily in our Angular applications, so testing the store, and then we, application I'm currently on is always on RxJS, and that trying to simulate all the calls becomes, it gets kind of more complicated and complicated. I think that it's always that weird balance of trying to figure out how am I testing too much, or what is the right thing to test. It's always like, you're also trying to kind of figure out that balance and what's the best. And I don't really know the answer to that, but
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with having good QA and having good requirements, like that they're clear to developers. We don't really have that, so it's more like, all right, let's write a component and the rest we test afterwards, but the requirements are never really clear as to like what we're actually trying to accomplish. And as I'm just thinking about like, yeah, that's really where it all starts, is like having an understanding of what is actually input.
So I think what you touched on is the difference between integration and unit testing. It sounds like you're doing a lot more integration testing than unit testing. Some of this stuff focuses specifically on unit testing. And to an extent, it's a good thing to do that, but again, I go back to I won't test the obvious stuff, I'll test the more non-obvious stuff. But then there's always integration testing. And that's where you need to worry about things like, what happens if your server's slow? Are you expecting certain timings on the front end? And if you don't get that timing, you pick up the wrong data from the store. It's that kind of thing that you need to worry about.
And unit testing too, a lot of them is not useful as much as integration testing. So if you end up stopping everything and you just click that button, that thing happened, unit testing module. The pure unit testing, well, if you have a complex algorithm and you want to test the algorithm properly, unit testing. But for most of the time, my unit test like there's a lot more integration where I call the services and call something. I don't stop everything. I have pure unit testing. And I mean, pure unit testing is that if something fails, you know exactly what, if something failed and I know which test failed, it's gonna take me 2 minutes to know what happened. The minute that thing calls 2 or 3 services, I can run that one test and find immediately what happened. So I don't need to know ahead of time exactly how to write the test for each service again.
well, what is helpful is like breaking, like, if you have a lot of code, breaking that into like single responsibility, breaking that into smaller methods. We had to do that recently. It makes each test a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're testing a specific thing, like it's doing this, it's doing this, it's doing this. And writing unit tests around those becomes really a lot easier.
It's
Trying
much
to
easier.
test a big block of code in the same way.
That's why as a developer, if QA has a set of automation tests they run and say, oh, it failed when we ran this test. I love something like that because I can just take the same test. I can run it, see it fail, and if I want to run it again, I don't have to go in through any manual setup, it's there. And I love those kind of
And
tests.
I think you have the test already, 5-unit test, very detailed, then I'm gonna fail, or 1 big integration test,
Yeah,
that will fail.
right. I'd rather have the integration
Yeah.
test that fails. Absolutely.
I had a question. Can you run things with code coverage like you can with Angular?
Yeah. I think Cypress has code coverage. I was going to mention that with Karma. So the Karma code coverage is actually, I came across the article. I think I have it in the notes. I'm not 100% sure. But the Karma code coverage is very deceptive because when you go and create those specs, you can get like 80% code coverage out of the box, but you're not testing 80% of your lines of code. It's because of the way components are created. So that's something to consider as well on your Karma tests is you're not really getting real coverage even though it says you're getting coverage. Because if you use the out-of-the-box specs, it works. The other thing is if you don't have a spec file with Karma for particular TS files, it doesn't even count it and you have higher coverage than you actually do. So
Like measure Cypress, like what code coverage is.
Cypress user have been asked about code coverage for 2 years. We do not believe code coverage is meaningful metric for end-to-end production tests.
thanks for correcting that. So yeah, I guess they don't have it, which makes sense with end-to-end because you're not hooked into the actual implementation of the code.
I don't think that Jasmine has it, but I think JESS does.
Oh, just, okay.
Yeah, it does.
Yes, it has it right there, show you in coverage, like, where it can show you percentage on each component, in the lines that they're not covered. But I don't think it's particularly useful, unless like you have to hit a metric.
Right. So the problem with Karma is that if you go and create your component and it has on init functions and you have the stuff inside there, well, it's going to hit your on init. It's going to hit some of the lifecycle changes and give you coverage even though you haven't done anything. I had a question before we finished. Is anyone doing any hooks to go and populate databases with their end-to-end tests?
Just like saying,
So how are you actually doing end-to-end tests if you're not populating your databases? Are you injecting data and doing integration tests? So you're doing integration tests then?
We're using the, like, JSON.
Yeah.
stuff and stuff. Yeah, we're just not.
So you're stubbing it out?
Intercepting, yeah, we're stuff.
Okay.
Intercepting calls and things.
Because it'd be nice to me, I want to have a thin slice of full end-to-end.
And he's
And
working on that too, the guy that we brought in is working on.
Okay.
His focus was first to kind of get everything working with just the mock data, but he's also wants to do, he's working on like a smoke test, make sure everything
Right.
goes through all the way through.
That seems like the tricky part to do a little bit. So, cool. Hey, I really feel privileged that you guys let me come out and speak to you guys today. So thank you so much and connect with me. Yeah, I'll hand it over to you.
Fantastic, it was a great one, thank you very much. Yeah, so you see, how long you been working with Angular?
I just started learning a couple months ago.
Actually learning stuff from you, so everybody has something to teach you something. And you know what, when you present here, it looks very good on the resume too. So come anybody, if you want to volunteer, you can, hey, I'm teaching the community. And when I look for a job, every time I say, yeah, I'm presenting on Meetup, what I tell, I say, yeah, I'm on Meetups, I presented and I trained the community of Dallas on Angular. That just goes such a long way. That's why I'm an expert. That's it. You have no more questions than Angular. So you just come here you do a Meetup, and I just everybody has something to know that you can share with other people. It's always a good thing to if you want to you research a little bit, get prepared to demo something, and an hour and a half, have fun. But even if you forget something we don't know, we all help each other, so it's not hard.
Any little test for Angular topics or any particular stuff?
Anything that you think may be interesting is probably interesting to someone else.
I'm not sure where the focus of the meetup group is. I mean, some meetup right into just kind of all the places, you don't mind doing JavaScript or Python and everything else that I'm just trying to
see where the office is, where we can find somebody or where we can find where the interesting topic.
Yeah, you can, there's so much different Angular, it's all the routing and all the injection stuff. There's a lot of advanced injection stuff you can find.
PWAs. You could do PWAs. You could do native script, integrating native script with Angular.
Yeah, we never got that. Well, someone talked to Jerry about PWA, but we haven't get them really one.
Interesting, GXS.
And GXS. NGXS, that's a competition to NGRX. Are you using it?
I used it once. Branch on.
Yeah, I used it a little bit. I was proposing it, but we didn't really submit it and then made it with NGRX.
So I came from NGRX and went to NGXS. It was like night and day, so much easier, so much less boilerplate.
Because it could use this decoder and all that.
Everything was a class thing.
Can you present that? Or that would be great. Does it use the tool? You know what, you have the Redux tool? Can you do the same Redux tool with the GXS?
I wouldn't have, for the most part, a lot of that was already done. When I created it, it was very easy to just, lift what was there and just use it. But I understood how it worked and why it worked. But I did like the simplification of managing the store.
Yeah, so that's something interesting because it's a simplification. Anybody who uses Redux, it's very a lot of code, a lot of boilerplate.
It's a, yeah, it is, but I think the benefit.
Yeah, it's worth it.
It's like definitely.
But NGXS solved that. It reduced the boilerplate by half, cut it by half.
So just like this goes to Solid, NGXX is to GRX.
Is anyone looking for jobs at all?
Yeah, there is. Anybody who wants to work on main stack? So, I don't know, to me, depends on the day, you get $1,000. Anybody who wants to work on the main stack?
Do you guys hire? What level are you guys? What level you guys hire at? What level do you guys hire at?
I'm architect.
No. What do you? Because I connect constantly. So I connect constantly. I teach at a meetup group where like boot camp people go to. So I'm trying to find people that know entry level jobs because I connect with them constantly. I also have 1,200 people in my network, so I'm constantly connecting with people in the area. So please connect with me if you're looking for a job, and you can ping me in a post. And if not, you can just ping me on there in the messenger.
Can we think if you're looking for people?
Sure.
That's the biggest problem now, there's job offers, and there's job offers and there's people. Yeah. That's a problem now.
Yeah, like I said, it's mostly, if you're looking for mid to senior, I'm not going to have a ton. Most people aren't looking for jobs at mid to senior, so. If you need that, go to ZenLeap. So go sign up on ZenLeap if you want that. Thinkful. So it's Thinkful Web Development. It's on Tuesdays at the Deck downtown.
What about Firebase? Is anybody using that?
He uses Firebase.
You use Firebase?
I thought you said you did.
I use Firebase. Yeah, I use Firebase too. I'm thinking, anybody else use Firebase?
I love Firebase. Like, I built a mobile app at Academy that utilized most of Firebase services. I would like to get back into Firebase. I thought it was probably